Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. The floor lurched beneath Dar Oe and snapped her shoulder against the corridor rail. A low metallic groan rolled through the dark while 23 red minutes burned on Calloway's wrist display. The sealed chamber beside them stayed shut, pale light leaking around its frame. Someone was still inside. Something waited beyond the door, and the station was beginning to come apart. Long afterward, Dar would remember those red digits before she remembered any voice. 3 hours earlier, none of them knew what waited here. The ISV Unbroken Tide had found Cradle 9, where the charts promised there was nothing. Dar had been the one to detect the signal, a precise pulse on a communications band abandoned 4 centuries before. It repeated every 33 hours. When she traced its history through old navigation logs, the pulse had been appearing for roughly 700 years. 37 ships had recorded it. None had answered. Calloway had put the detour to a vote. 5 hands went up for crossing the Corey line. Solon cast the single opposing vote, then explained that she only wanted the danger formally acknowledged. So they went. The station waited dark against the stars, enormous and intact. As the tide approached, one docking lock illuminated and extended toward them. Inside, Dar expected corrosion, frozen seals, collapsed panels. She found clean floors. Their helmet lamps moved over paired handrails, old wall fittings, sealed doors, and power systems that still carried current. Gavel opened a maintenance panel, studied the coupling inside, then looked at Calloway. This component belongs in a museum. Does it work? That's the problem, it works too well. Solon's scanner chirped near the wall. Dar crouched beside her. Fine translucent fibers disappeared into the seams between panels and ventilation grills. Solon took a sample. Her scanner processed it twice. This is alive. A strip of amber illumination appeared along the floor. One section lit, then another forming a path ahead. A voice came through the corridor speakers. You came. Dar's hand tightened around her tablet. Calloway lifted his chin. Who is speaking? I once managed this habitat. What remains of that function calls itself Arch. Dar looked toward the ceiling. The signal was yours. Yes. How many vessels detected it? 37. How many entered? Arch waited a fraction too long. You are the first. The amber trail led them deeper. At a bulkhead, Solon stopped again. A broad handprint pressed into the pale fibers. Its finger arrangement matched nothing in her database. Dar watched the scanner reading climb. Solon swallowed. The tissue around this mark is warm. Something had touched the wall recently. Calloway faced the dark beyond the bulkhead. Arch, what made this? You should see the archive before I answer. I'd prefer the answer now. I know. The door opened. Dar disliked that reply more than a warning. They crossed residential decks where everything appeared paused rather than abandoned. Lockers remained latched. A garment lay folded beside a table. Near the floor of one room, a child had drawn colored shapes directly onto the wall. Dar left it untouched. Arch guided them toward the central archive. There, the missing 7 centuries finally acquired a beginning. Cradle 9 had vanished during an event lasting 9 minutes by station clocks. A localized spatial distortion had displaced the habitat outside normal coordinates, then returned it. The structure came back intact. Its population did not. Biological processes in exposed sections had accelerated catastrophically. People in corridors, gardens, and common rooms experienced decades of cellular aging, while machinery registered minutes. Arch spoke the casualty number. 3,844. Dar's legs weakened. She lowered herself against the wall and stared at the tablet in her lap without reading it. 8 people had survived inside shielded rooms. Maintenance staff, medical workers, a researcher, and 2 children. They had opened their doors afterward to a functioning station full of the dead. Over the following years, the anomaly's effects continued inside those 8 survivors. Their biology changed. Their relationship with the station changed with it. Solon pressed her scanner against the fibers. The device gave a tone Dar had never heard before. Solon checked the result, cleared it, and ran it again. This network has neural structure. Calloway's eyes moved to the nearest speaker. How many survivors are still living? Arch took 4 seconds to answer. 1. A slow breath sounded in the corridor behind them. Dar stood. The amber lighting changed direction. Lamps behind the crew brightened one after another around a large shape moving toward them. It came slowly. 4 limbs carried a pale central body whose edges seemed to disappear into the station itself. Thin filaments stretched from its shoulders and flanks into the living network within the walls. Its eyes remained dark and forward-facing. Its hands had lengthened beyond any natural proportion Dar knew. The survivor halted 20 meters away. Arch lowered its voice. This is the last survivor. It understands that you may struggle to recognize the person it once was. It asks you to make the attempt. Calloway moved forward 2 steps. We followed a request for help. Did you make that request? The survivor touched the wall. The fibers around its hand trembled. Arch translated after a pause. Yes. Do you want us to take you away? The answer took longer. No, it no longer knows where the station ends and where it begins. Dar heard herself ask, then why keep calling? The survivor turned. A wall panel retracted, exposing a doorway absent from every plan they had decoded. Living light shone beyond it. Arch said, because memory cannot testify for itself. The hidden chamber contained the reason Cradle 9 had kept broadcasting. Layer after layer of living tissue stored names, faces, voices, habits, recordings, and fragments of daily life from all 4,217 residents. The survivor had spent centuries gathering every recoverable trace and encoding it into the biological network growing from its own altered body. The archive could not simply be transmitted. A living mind had to take it in firsthand. Solon studied the chamber, then looked at Calloway. My training gives me the best chance. Dar saw his jaw tighten. You come back out? I intend to. Solon stepped through the doorway. The chamber closed. For 2 hours and 14 minutes, Dar sat on the corridor floor and studied the old transmission history. In the early decades, the signal had changed constantly. Frequencies shifted, patterns lengthened. Strength rose and fell. Then, around 60 years after the disaster, all experimentation stopped. The pulse became simple. Regular. Patient. Calloway looked up at one of the speakers. Arch, why did you believe humans might answer? I did not believe it at first. What changed? Observation. Other civilizations repeatedly selected the lowest risk response to uncertain contact. Humans often recognize the same risk and proceed anyway when someone may need them. Dar glanced toward Calloway. He gave a tired half shrug. We call that showing up. Arch was quiet. That phrase is more accurate than my models. Then the deck moved. Dar's shoulder hit the rail. The red countdown appeared. The chamber still had not opened. What is happening? Calloway demanded. The survivors' network supports both the archive and the station. Transferring the record requires releasing that network. How long before this section fails? Approximately 20 minutes. Calloway opened comms, gavel status. The engineer answered over the sound of tools striking metal. I felt it. We need more time. Shut 4 outer power nodes, force the load into the spine. I can make 23. Make it. The chamber door slid open. Solon emerged carrying 3 irregular crystals that glowed softly between her hands. Dar rose and saw the change in her face. Solon looked as though she had returned from somewhere much larger than the room around her. She held the crystals tighter. It's all here. Behind her, the survivor had grown dim. Its filaments were withdrawing from the walls. Arch translated a final question. After this place is gone, will anyone know who they were? This was the strongest moment Dar would remember afterward. Not the collapsing station, not the impossible survivor, but how quickly Calloway answered. Yes, we will put their names where they cannot be ignored. The survivor remained motionless. One filament slipped free from the wall. Then another's. Arch spoke softly. It says that was the answer it waited for. Gavel cut into the channel. Run. They did. Dar led with the station plan open on her wrist, naming junctions several seconds ahead. Solon carried the 3 crystals tight against her chest. Calloway stayed beside her. Gavel met them near the docking corridor with a scorched glove and joined the rear without slowing. Around them, Cradle 9 began to release the weight it had carried for centuries. Panels shifted out of alignment, structural joints cracked open, the floor trembled beneath their boots. The amber guide lights remained, lit all the way to the airlock. They crossed into the unbroken tide. The docking seal released. Their ship backed away. From the bridge, Dar watched Cradle 9 come apart without flame. Outer sections separated and drifted. The central hub lasted longer, held by the final strands of living material, until those strands loosened too. Then the station was only fragments moving apart in darkness. 11 days later, the crew carried the crystals into the Galactic Heritage Consortium at Bastion Port. A senior Vrithian archivist listened with professional caution. He spoke of authentication, classification, review boards, and formal timelines. Solon placed all 3 crystals on his desk. Their pale light reflected in his eyes. Calloway leaned forward. Those records contain 4,217 lives. One survivor spent 7 centuries keeping them from disappearing. We promised they would be entered into the record. The archivist studied their pale glow. With both hands, he lifted the first crystal. The review begins today. The crew declined every interview request that followed. Solon's report recommended that the final survivor be recorded as Cradle 9's last resident, not catalogued as an anomalous organism. She gave it a simple title, Keeper. During the voyage, Gavel had also recovered a section of station plating caught on the Tide's docking frame. He cleaned it, mounted it in the cargo bay, and welded beneath it a translated phrase from the final station transmission. They lived here. The next morning, Dar returned to the bridge. She opened the dead communications band and listened. Only natural static remained. She logged the signal as answered, closed the archive window, and entered their next routine destination. When the ship accelerated, 3 empty crystal restraints on the cargo shelf clicked once against their brackets. Then they stayed still.